Hello, welcome back to Mark's Garden at Rose Cottage near Nantwich in Cheshire. There's Rose Cottage behind me. Slightly different video today. When I moved here 12 months ago, I promised you one day that I'd take you down to the local canal. So I'm going to walk Simba, my dog, down to the canal and show you. And at the same time, I'm going to talk about my 7 favourite gardening sayings. The 7th one is actually not a saying, it's a little story, it's quite poignant. Anyway, I'll get on with my walk, which is down a public footpath over my neighbour's land, and we'll see what we can see, and I'll speak to you in a minute. Simba is a Chihuahua. He's actually 15 years old, and he's not very well, if I'm honest with you, although you wouldn't think it looking at him. He's quite sprightly, but he's got a heart condition and a collapsing trachea, and he's deaf and he's going blind. But he's doing all right, and he does like his walk down to the local canal. Very lucky really, because this is a public footpath over my neighbour's land down to the local canal. So we get to see a lot of wildlife around where we live. So let's start talking about these gardening sayings. The first one is, "Ne'er cast a clout till May is out." Have you heard that one? And a lot of people think that's about not taking your coat off until the month of May is out, but apparently not. May is a bush, and you're not supposed to cast a clout until the blossom is on the May bush. And a clout is an old English word for cloth or clothing, so there you go. Ne'er cast a clout till May is out. My neighbours have just rescued 2 lop-eared goats, but they're hiding away today. Can't really see them, they're hidden away in that shed over there in the corner of the field. Now, I was told the other day that actually, if your dog doesn't like walking, take him out anyway, because a sniff is just as good for a dog as a walk. It gives them quite a lot of mental stimulation. So, a sniff's as good as a walk to a deaf dog. And my next gardening saying is also weather related, and that is, oak before ash, we're in for a splash. Ash before oak, we're in for a soak. And apparently it's meant to help you forecast the weather for the year ahead, but I looked on the meteorological website and apparently there's no truth in it. But what it's supposed to mean is, if the oak gets its leaves before the ash, you're only in for a splash of rain that year. But if the ash gets its leaves before the oak, you're going to get a good soaking. And there's no truth in it. However, the timing of the leaves coming on either the oak or the ash does depend on certain things. Apparently the ash gets its leaves depending on daylight hours, and the oak gets its leaves depending on temperature. So if we're having a warm spring, oak will get its leaves first. If we're having long, light days, but not necessarily warm, the ash will get its leaves first. Interesting. So I'm now approaching the Llangollen Canal, which runs very close to my house. It's Llangollen in Wales, in that direction. And the rest of the country in that direction. Apparently you can get all over the country on the canal networks nowadays, and I hope you can hear the bird song. There's hundreds of little birds all making lots of noise. It's springtime. I suppose they're all getting ready to nest. And so my next little gardening related saying is, red sky at night, shepherd's delight. Red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning. And apparently there is some truth in this, because in the evening, if there's high pressure, it does cause dust particles to be in the air, which causes the redness in the sky from the sun's rays. And apparently that high pressure can be associated with good weather the next day. So there might be some truth in that saying in terms of forecasting the weather. Red sky at night, shepherd's delight. Red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning. And my next little gardening saying is about weeds. 1 year's seeds, 7 years weeds. And apparently what that relates to is if you don't dig your weeds up and you leave them to go to seed, you'll be plagued with weeds for the next 7 years. So dig your weeds up. And the next saying is also about weeds. And I'll come back to that in a moment. It's slightly more positive. It's by A.A. Milne, who wrote Winnie the Pooh. And I suppose this next saying could speak to inclusivity, which is something that everyone's talking about at the moment. And it's by A.A. Milne, who wrote Winnie the Pooh. And it's, weeds are flowers too, once you get to know them. Isn't that sweet? When you transplant a big tree or shrub into a new home, there's a little saying which I always remind myself of. Year 1 it sleeps, year 2 it creeps, year 3 it leaps. And it's about being patient. And it's easy when you transplant a shrub or a bush to think that it might have died or it might not be doing well, but you've got to be patient, because year 1 it sleeps, year 2 it creeps, and year 3 it leaps. And so my final little saying on Simba's canal walk is actually a little tale, a little story rather than a saying. And it's very poignant, it's a little bit sad actually. Have you ever heard the phrase Twin Oaks, or visited a place called Twin Oaks, or been to a pub called Twin Oaks? Well, the phrase Twin Oaks comes from when traveller folk used to lose their babies. If the baby died for some reason, they used to bury the baby in the hedgerow with an acorn in the palm of each hand, and those acorns might grow to form twin oaks. And that's my final little tale from the garden. Hope you've enjoyed this little canal walk. Let's check in on Simba. Here he is way behind us. I'm just going to have a look at some canal boats. I'll see you soon back in the garden. And here is a little bonus saying which has just come in from Azalea. Hello Azalea, thank you for commenting. Apparently stolen plants will do better than bought plants. Now, when we use the word stolen, we don't mean stolen as in pinched or taken without the owner's consent. We mean given or donated. So I've just been given some lovely bay trees and I did a video on them 2 days ago. And so they hopefully will do better because they were given to me, stolen to me. Thanks Azalea.